Hi everyone. So today we are going over relational self-care. So it's about our relationships. And so relational self-care is about nurturing your need for connection with other people. And so it's about taking care of existing relationships and friendships, creating new connections, establishing boundaries in relationships with others so that connections stay healthy. One thing I do want to say is, we are humans. And so, like that picture says, we are created for human connection, right? So, we are a relational animal. And so, relationships are critical to our self care. And so, something I mentioned, in a different presentation about COVID and how, with isolation and how that can, um, isolation from others can make, our mental health suffer. And so, some benefits of having positive relationships in our lives include lengthening our lifespan, lowering our risk of health issues, and increasing our psychological well being. Um, So I would say that relationships can have their struggles, and that some relationships are healthier than others. And sometimes we do need to cut some people out. Sometimes we do need to put up boundaries, but not cut them out entirely, right? And sometimes we have to go through harder feelings and experiences within some type of relationship in order to get to a more connected place, right? It might bring us actually more together. So I'll go more into that in upcoming slides. So relational self-care brings us a sense of belongingness, right? It's our innate human need to be an accepted member of some sort of group. It brings us social connectedness, which is our experience of how close we are to other people. And these are important because it fosters belongingness and connectedness, right? So groups could include, like being a member of a group could be like within a family, within a friend group, with the, coworkers, teams, sports, classes, fraternities, and sororities, things like that. So typically, if this class was in person, we would do an introvert or extrovert quiz in class. And so I'll post an introvert extrovert quick quiz for you. Actually, let me show it to you guys real quick. It's gonna be a little cut off here. So I'll read this little paragraph to you if you have never done an extrovert or introvert quiz. And so an extrovert could be described as someone who enjoys and naturally seeks the company of others to help them relax. An introvert, by contrast, could be said to be someone who tends to find they can relax with a few people around them or by being on their own. Humans are good at adapting their behaviors, and it's possible for an introvert to flourish in the company of others and for an extrovert to enjoy time alone. Have a look. Okay, yeah, I'm not going to read that part. So, the thing about introvert and extrovert is that we all have extrovert qualities, we all have introvert qualities, right? And we all are relational beings. So, an introvert still wants good quality relationships. It just might mean that they don't want to be the center of attention, right? It might be that they don't want to be at this massive party and these people are asking about their personal lives. It might just be that they want like a small group of friends over. And it might be that the extrovert might be recharged by those experiences and like just like let's go, let's go to more people. Whereas an introvert might get a little bit bogged down and tired from it and need to kind of retreat for a little bit to get recharged. So introverts are not like anti-people, right? Anti-relationships. It's just a different sense of interaction and like how we want it done, I guess. And so some of the questions here, for examples of I prefer parties and large gatherings of people, or I prefer being with people I feel very close to. If I want something, I just go and get it. Or if I want something, I think about the pros and cons of asking for it. Or I'd be happy to take part in a karaoke competition if I could sing, or there's no way I would sing in public if I could sing, even if I could sing, right? So those are just some extrovert or introvert qualities. And now why I bring up the qualities of extroverts and introverts is because it's important to know type of our qualities of how we interact and how we want to interact with others. So it's not about interacting or not interacting, it's just how we feel comfortable going about it, right? So if you're lacking social connections, you might have poorer health, greater stress, feelings of loneliness, depression, anxiety, and guilt. So it's very critical to engage in social connections, and it really does increase our ability to feel happier, to increase our positive health, and to feel more well adjusted. So some tools to improve our relational self-care is really reflecting on people who drain you and then the people who energize you. So really think about that. Look at your close relationships, and is there anyone that kind of like drains you after you leave? If you're a helper and someone who is a little bit more passive with their emotional states and maybe struggles a little bit more to be put up boundaries, right? You might get overpowered by someone, and really think about those relationships. And if someone drains you, maybe, but you love them, or maybe they're not someone you'd want to get rid of, but maybe it's something that you need to work on in that relationship of reducing feeling drained by saying, expressing your feelings. Or maybe it's just putting boundaries up of how much time you can give them or what days of the week. Like maybe after a long work week, you don't hang out with them Friday night because you're exhausted. Or you don't pick up every phone call because it starts to be like all about them and all of their problems, right? And so maybe you just put up some boundaries. It can be removing a negative person. So sometimes relationships are beyond and they are toxic. And so it's recognizing what a toxic relationship looks like and when it's time to remove someone. So are they causing more harm than good, right? Are they providing you with a sense of safety in that relationship, security, support? Or is it one-sided? And are they gaslighting you? Or are they hurting you in any way, emotionally abusive, physically abusive, encouraging you to not be around friends or family? So there's a time and a place. You definitely just need to remove people, right? Safely, of course. And then balancing this, balancing between spending time with others or spending time alone, right? So sometimes we need to spend time by ourselves, and that improves our relational self-care because sometimes we need to retreat and gain some fuel to go hang out with others, right? So it's just kind of checking in with yourself and seeing what you really need. And sometimes if you've been retreating too long, you're realizing, I need to kind of put myself out there, right? And spend some time with others. Another one is asking for help, right? When you need it. And so I know for me, when I became a mom, I struggled to ask for help because, or even take it when it was asked, offered. So, so are you, can I help with that? And I'd be like, oh, no, I got it. But maybe I did have it on my own. But also taking help is okay too. And that might improve our relational self-care because, people want to help you and it feels good to help. And that goes to the next point, right? Of helping someone else. It can feel really great to help someone. And so it improves our relationships when we do lend out a hand to others in need, or when we do take their hand when we're the ones in need, right? It also can show our vulnerable side by saying, yeah, you know what, I do need the help. And that can bring people closer, seeing that more vulnerable side of you. Another way is getting a self-care pal. So maybe you find that one of your friends loves yoga too, or maybe they love hiking too, or getting coffee, and so and going on walks. And so getting a pal to do those activities with is also a great tool. I was also going to say improving our relational self-care can also be working on the inner person first too. So doing that emotional self-care work can improve our relationships. So sometimes seeking our own therapy to improve our communication techniques and skills to then use on our relationships, right? So part of our relational self-care is relaxing and unwinding, right? Because unwinding helps us be more available and open to spending time with other people because we're taking time to recharge. So this is most effective when you're attuned to your own needs, feelings, thoughts, and desires. It requires us to pause and pay attention to what we're experiencing in that moment and being mindful. So I won't say this enough, right? Like if we are taking care of ourselves, we are more readily available to help others or just to be there for them. When I'm taking care of my needs, I am so more present for my relationships as opposed to I'm feeling drained and burnt out. I really struggle to be in the moment with those other people and hear their experiences and what they're going through and or my kids, and being just present to play with them, right? Let's see. Nurturing. So there's maintenance of relationships, and this is an important one, right? Because long-term relationships take work. There's definitely a line between healthy and unhealthy, and when relationships should end and when they just should be worked on. So we shouldn't throw in the towel every time we see like something miscommunication or a disagreement, right? So sometimes relationships that have been long-term can also start just to feel dull and boring, and we start to wonder what feels good again, right? And maybe that's something outside of the relationship. And so there's relationship maintenance, which includes spending quality time together, doing fun shared activities, and expressing gratitude for the other person's actions and their qualities about them that we appreciate. And so this is near and dear to me. When you're a parent, they take a lot of your time, the kiddos, and so it's hard to nurture your intimate relationships with that, right? And so it's making sure there's date nights, and it's making sure there's time to reconnect and have like more just grow, like more connected conversations. Part of nurturing a relationship is doing the harder topics of saying, hey, when you did that, I felt disconnected from you, or when I'm sensing you're putting a wall up. What's going on? And so it's having those harder conversations is part of relationship maintenance, because we can't continue to grow and feel connected if we don't face the harder conversations head on. And like I said earlier, when we have harder conversations, that can bring us closer. And if it brings us farther apart, then we have our answer too, right? So the question is, are you in a healthy relationship? Well, I'm going to actually post, I don't have it open on my computer right now, but there are just qualities of a healthy relationship, right, that we can kind of assess and see if they're in our relationship. And so I'll put that up for you guys on Blackboard. But I don't know if we always know if we're in a fully healthy relationship or if it's like serving our purpose, right? And so some relationships are more complicated too, like when it's a parent and we kind of know it's not really that healthy, but they're our parent. We also don't want to cut them out. We've determined that. And so it's kind of like then assessing like how we continue to have them a part of our lives, and whether it be more boundaries or having harder discussions or family therapy, things like that, or maybe just more acceptance of that's who they are and it doesn't signify what your worth is. And then also with healthy relationship talk is kind of the question of like, there's always that question of like, is this something we continue to work on, or is it time to walk away? And I think that's a very sensitive, specific question for that's not black and white. That's definitely situational specific, right? That isn't always hard to answer. That isn't always easy to answer. Sometimes, yes, the answer is right in front of you, right? And you're just maybe just scared to take it. Or maybe the answer isn't very clear to you. And that's okay too. So relationships are complicated. I was just explaining this the other day to someone, like, humans are so complicated. If you just look at yourself, like it's just like our one person is such a complicated structure, right? It's based on our DNA, where we came from, the makeup we came from our ancestors and our parents, and then like on top of it, then we get in our early childhood experiences that really shape who we are, and it might not even be memories we fully remember, but they definitely shape who we are. And then our continued experiences and our environments are what shape us, right? So we are very complicated beings, and then we get in a relationship with someone, right, that didn't have the same DNA as us, that didn't have the same experiences growing up, or like life experiences. And even if they had the same experiences, they would be different, right? You can look at twins who have very similar genetic makeup, who have very similar experiences growing up, and they could be very different in how they grew up because, our resiliences are different, our everything, it's just different people. And so we can't expect our partners to react the way we want them to. We can't expect them to be the way we want them to be in every moment of the day, right? We can't control that because they are their own person. And so relationships can be very complicated. And I think taking that for what it is can be really healing in that as well. Like just kind of giving grace to that. I know I say that a lot, but and then just knowing, where's the line? Is this still healthy, and it's just something we're kind of like a hard time we're going through, and or is it time to walk away? And so I think that keeping in mind that we are challenging human beings, and then when we have those harder discussions, how is the other person taking it? When you express those feelings and you're vulnerable, are they coming at you with anger? Are they annoyed that you have these harder feelings? Do they walk away? That might be signs for you that this isn't healthy, right? Or are they in tune with you? Are they listening? Are they saying, you know what? I know I do this, and it's from when I grew up, right? And I want to work on this. And you see them working on it, right? They're not going to be perfect human beings where they never do it again, but maybe you see the growth, right? And so that can kind of dictate if it's healthy or not healthy, right? That our feelings are heard, they're respected, our space is respected, our boundaries are respected. There's never an okay time in a healthy relationship to be hit, belittled, emotionally abused, controlled, financially or physically. So no, there are things that are black and white, right? That are like, that's just not okay. then there's the other stuff, right, that you have to really determine, the more of the gray area stuff that we're talking about. When you have the harder conversations, are they listening to it, and are they actually trying to grow, or are they kind of disconnecting? Because that might be your answer right then and there, if it's going to be continued healthy or not for you. That was a lot. All right. How do we handle conflict? Conflict is inevitable, right? We're going to have conflict. Again, we're human beings, and we need these connections, although they can be hard for us, right? We can grow in them. And so handling conflict, conflict isn't good or bad. And actually, it's not always bad. Like I've said, that it can help us bring us closer together. And so these are some pointers that you can get in therapy, or in couples therapy, family therapy, individual therapy, to help you handle conflict when it arises. And so one is listening. Truly listen to your other person. It's not like, I don't know if you've ever argued with someone before and you just see they're just like literally thinking of how to dispute what you're saying and put down what you're saying, right? They're just looking to how to say, no, you're wrong. So that's not listening. They're listening literally just to dispute you. Truly listen. And that might be something you do too, not just, the other person. But so if you do that, let's change it. So truly listening requires you to not be thinking about what your next response is. It's really trying to hear their perspective. So even if you're in a disagreement, meaning like you don't agree with what's going on, but truly hear their side of things. How is that experience for them, right? It's important to express yourself. So not just listening to the other person, but also expressing yourself. Now, this can be done negatively, where you won't get a positive response, like saying you always or you never won't get a great response. And if it's always you based, you won't get the great response, right? Because it just sets the other person up to be defensive. So if it's like, you never listen to me, right? The other person's be like, yeah, I do. What the heck? You right? But it could be like expressing yourself, where I statements come in, right? And I statements are a whole bag to tool to learn. So if you want to look them up, please do so. I statements. And so it's practicing saying things from the I perspective as of you, because you can be very attack feeling. So it's like saying, I feel really alone when we're talking about things I want to do, and I don't feel like you hear them, right? And we do try in I statements to not say you at all, but come on, we're a human, and sometimes you can be helpful. So try to minimize you as much as you can. People are more sensitive when they hear how you feel coming from an I perspective. So it's a softer tone, right? When you're just saying, I feel really sad, right? People listen to more to that than you make me feel sad, right? And that goes with tone too. Soften the tone, right? Ask for what you need. We got to be more bold in terms of just flat out saying what you need in something. So if you're not feeling safe in a relationship, let's say, because they keep being indecisive about you, you can say I need stability. Can you provide that? Right? And that can be scary, right? Because stating what you need sometimes might mean that you don't get what you want from that relationship. Validate. So we can still validate someone without agreeing, which is kind of crazy, right? So we can validate their perspective. So let me think of... I'm trying to think of an example. So it's really acknowledging their perspective, right? So let's say... I'm drawing a blank on, I would usually have great validation examples, but I'm drawing a blank. been a long day. I'm trying to think. So validation, let's see. And you don't agree. So you could say something like, let's say your partner tells you, I really don't feel like I'm listened to when I say, I want to do more things, and you kind of laugh it off, saying, I don't really want to do that, and you kind of just don't meet my need with that. And so the partner who doesn't agree with that could say, wow, it sounds like I'm impacting you feeling really alone. And so something about that statement is validating, says, I'm listening to you. I hear you. Did you say, I'm sorry? No. Did you say, I completely agree, you're right, let's fix that. Let me change that behavior. Hey, and that could be the direction you take. But you can still validate in an argument when you disagree with their point they're making. Take a break or always be kind, right? So I want to say name calling is never a great thing. I can have a pretty sharp tongue, and knowing that that's not going to bring me closer to my person, right? That'll just push them away. So really kind of keeping that in check, that expressing my anger through, even if it's a nice tone, but it's a sharp and mean words in it, right? It's not going to bring them closer. It's actually it's going to bring you farther away from your goal of connecting with them. So being kind, you can actually do little things in your head to, in an argument, remind yourself of positive attributes about them, to help you soften up a little bit, right? Take a break if you need it. It's important to communicate how long you need. It's important to communicate you need a break. So some people can get very overwhelmed and need a break, and then another partner might not need a break at all. But it's respecting boundaries of the person who does need the break. And then this is something you communicate with your partner, and it might take some work after a few arguments, right? Like, I'm a person who needs breaks, and then the other person might be like, I don't need breaks. I need to think it through, but I hear you need breaks. Okay, this is what I need. I need you to tell me when you need a break. And that partner could say, okay. And then an agreed amount of time is important. So if someone says, I need a break, the other person might think it's like, okay, cool, 10 minutes, right? And the other person might be like, no, I meant a day, So it's important to have a time period also kind of discussed. So avoid being defensive. Honestly, being defensive gets you nowhere. This isn't a debate. This isn't like who wins, right? So important to not see relationships and personal relationships as a win-lose situation. And if you are dealing with someone like that and they are unwilling to change, this will start to be an unhealthy relationship, right? And so it's important to not be defensive, because if you're defensive, you cannot hear the other person. You cannot help them. You cannot help, feel reconnected with them. If you are the person who can avoid defensiveness, but your other person can't, again, you're not going to get far. So it's important to come to a resolution and repair that emotional harm. Repairing means reconnecting. It's maybe saying sorry. It might be through hugging. It might be saying what you've done wrong. It might be saying what you want to work on to improve things, and saying kind things about the other person of that you admire. And so that's it for our relational self-care. I know it's a lot. And then make sure you check out the healthy relationship tool I'm going to put up, and then also the introvert extrovert quiz. Thank you guys. Bye.